Hello guys and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me Vulcan. Today I have for you game 2 out of 2 games between Herr Robert and Player in round 4 of the second European tournament. Today we are going to be seeing Colombelles, and on the Allied side Herr Robert has chosen the 2nd Infantry, and on the Axis side Player has chosen the 9th Panzer. So these division choices are very interesting because in the previous game we did see Player use the 2nd Infantry himself to defeat Herr Robert's 2nd Panzer, whereas in this one Herr Robert's going to be trying to use the 2nd Infantry to defeat Player's 9th Panzer, which is an interesting matchup, one that I actually feel goes more in favour of the 2nd Infantry than it would have against the 2nd Panzer. So Herr Robert will have a little bit of a better advantage to work with than Player had in the last game. But when it comes down to the map, I think Player will have some room to work with. It really comes down, especially in the early game, to engagements between things like the M4s and the 20mm autocannon units of the 9th Panzer. So M4DDs are on the side of the 2nd Infantry. On the side of Player, he has the Panzer II Lux, the Panzer II C, and also the Panzer Is. And if those are used on the opposite side of the map to an M4, then they can probably do quite a lot of damage. But if they bump into an M4, then that's where they're going to have a lot of problems. Now, Player does have a way to counter the M4s, and that is the Marders. But due to the Marders having quite low armor, they can be pinned very quickly by a very high number of units. So things like mortars, machine guns, airstrikes, all that kind of stuff can pin down a Marder very quickly, and therefore an M4 can take advantage of that. And that is something that Player will have to be very careful of, otherwise he will find pretty much all of his armor options countered in Phase A, which is not a place you want to be in as the 9th Panzer. Moving into Phase B, however, you will get access to Panzer IVJs and plenty of them. You get the 125 points per minute, which is quite nice, and that is enough to buy a Panzer IV every minute, which therefore can start to build up the amount you have in order to give you a way through the armour on the opposing side. Because the best armour that the 2nd Infantry get at the end of the day are the 2-star Wolverines, and those don't come in until Phase C. Until then, you've just got to deal with Shermans. And Panzer IVJs, if they're kept at the range engagements, can be very effective against M4s, especially in numbers. So that's something that I hope Player does take advantage of. By the way, let's have a look at some of these units going down. On the side of Player, on the top side, we do have the Speertroop in the 251. Further down, we see a couple units of Panzer Grenadiers backed up by some Command Infantry. There's going to be some Command Infantry and another Panzer Grenadier there with the Marder III and a Flampanzer. Also going to be a Panzer Schreck as well. So a large focus on the centre of the map. This Marder looking to counter armour on the top side of the factory. An interesting choice. Further down we see 2 more units of Panzer Grenadiers accompanying a unit of Speertroop to just cut off this bottom side and make sure the front line doesn't get pushed too far in Herr Robert's favour. Herr Robert's also loosely defended the bottom side. He's got 1 unit of rifles, a unit of recon, an AT gun, he's got some Ranger Marauders and a rifle squad for this centre tree line to cut off the road. And then on the top side we see multiple units of rifles fronting an AT gun, some command and an M4DD. So an M4DD going to be looking for the push on the top side. The M4DD actually works quite well on this strip because it doesn't need a bridge to cross, although I haven't really seen the M4s being used amphibiously in a very long time, because when you do put them in the water they do get left very vulnerable to enemy attacks and they can't really maneuver very well, so that's something that people tend to avoid. But either way, that's going to be an M5 gun with the 1,200 meter range, something that can definitely do a lot of damage to a Marder if it gets into line of sight, so we'll have to look out for that engagement. And if Player loses the points invested into this Marder 3 early on, then this M4 could have an absolute whale of a time on the top side of the map here. And the Marder 3 has revealed itself by firing at the rifles. Rifles, though, are busy chewing up some Speertroop there. The 251 are going to be looking for the surrender onto these rifles, maybe. but hasn't managed to pin them down yet, and instead bumped into some other rifles, which is not ideal. So it's going to have to back off. Won't be able to surrender these since there is another squad very nearby. The M4 is going to be zooming its way up to try and get rid of this half-track once for all. Now, Herr Robert doesn't necessarily want to suicide these rifles, so he will want to probably fall these back, because there is still the potential there for surrender if this 250 wasn't actually falling back that quickly. The M4 though, that's going to find the shot, opens up the charge forwards for the rifles. If they can occupy that building up here, like these buildings just on the other side of the tree line, that will be very difficult for a player to dislodge. Now the M5 gun has rolled up. The M4 though has got into the 1000 meter range, kills the Panzer very quickly indeed, now engaging the Marder 3. Marder 3 definitely has penetration value here, but the M4 pinning the Marder much quicker, therefore the Marder is going to be backed off by player. Panzer 2 Lux has been brought in to attack on the top side, but getting out of line of sight of the M4 should be fine. Rifles now engaging Panzer Grenadiers. At this range, the rifles actually do have the advantage since they use 8 HE versus the Panzer Grenadiers 5, but with these Panzer Grenadiers also on target with their MG42s, these rifles will find themselves pinned down soon enough. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, the Panzer Grenadiers of player are trying to make some ground, but unsupported could be pretty dangerous. But currently things are at the 50-50. Herr Robert has ground on the top. It looks like players trying to do the opposite on the bottom side. Now Ranger supports have come in. They're going to be engaging these Panzer Grenadiers. The Panzer Grenadiers without any veterancy can still do a lot of damage to units in the open. That's exactly what you're seeing here with those Ranger supports being pinned down. But with the accompaniment of the M4DD, those Panzer Grenadiers will be pinned themselves, and the rifles can press onto them to possibly find a surrender or just secure the buildings that they were previously in. The rifles now engaging the Panzergrens. Panzergrens though, ideal engagement range there, using their 9 HE on the MG42s to get the job done. Spear Troop also helping out. Panzer Grenadiers pushing aggressively on this top side. I'm very surprised the player hasn't gone for the push up the tree line though. That's something that would normally be quite common. But in this case, player taking a wide berth around this tree line obviously knows that there is infantry in there. Doesn't want to get caught out of the close range. M5 gun now engaging the Flampanzer, wants to take that out. It can definitely do a lot of damage to a lot of his infantry if he lets it, so needs to try and kill it if he can, because it can be an incredibly big nuisance, especially if it gets on top of units like these Ranger supports which don't have any AT. And one thing that I mentioned in the previous game is that a lot of the 2nd Infantry doesn't have any AT on their infantry squads. They rely more on specialised infantry like the Ranger Marauders or just straight up bazooka squads. Their command also have some AT in the late game, but in the early game you can see the Ranger leaders here. They don't have any AT, but since they have the 20 HE power grenades instead. So M1 gun, that's going to be pinned down in the face of Panzergrens. Panzergrens still pushing forwards, but like I mentioned, unsupported. So these Panzer Grenadiers are going to end up getting pinned down in the face of the Ranger Sports and the rifles. They're going to have to fall back as soon as possible, otherwise there's a potential for surrender there, and a huge salient to form for Herr Robert. Same deal on this bottom side. Like these Panzergrens, if they end up getting pinned, it's just bad, really, really bad news, because this is so much ground to be lost here, and Herr Robert is finding the +1 as he does find the kill onto the Flampanzer behind the factory. Also manages to use the M5 gun to take out the Panzer II Lux on the top side here, which is very important since there wasn't really any significant AT to take that out otherwise, and it was starting to chunk into the rifle squads that were currently there. M4's moved down to the factory now to engage there, but the Marder 3 is still alive. It's going to have trouble finding shots onto the M4 though, due to all of the buildings that are in the way. The mortar carrier is trying to take on the M5 gun here and take that out. If it can, then it will allow this Marder 3 a little bit more room, but otherwise this M5 gun is going to continue to be an issue. Now Spear Troop on this bottom side did manage to kill off the recon. They're still engaging the rifles here. These Panzer Grenadiers have been surrounded behind enemy lines. They're going to take double morale damage, which will make a difference at close range. Ranger supports, when they start firing again, will start to pin these Panzergrens. If the Panzergrens can kill the Ranger support squad first though, that may not be so much of an issue. It really does depend. This is very close. Never mind. Ranger support gets the job done. Panzer Grenadiers in the town, they're going to get taken out. Rifles are getting hit by the mortar though, so looks like players still contesting quite well. Has the Flam Panzer in position, but pushing forwards these Panzer Grenadiers on the bottom side and not making the ground that he wanted to was, in my opinion, quite a big waste of those infantry squads. Without the support of things like these Panzer 1Cs, there is quite simply no point in pushing forwards, in my opinion, because you just find that the Panzer Grenadiers do get pinned down and then surrendered or just straight up killed. Now this Flam Panzer, again, really nice choice. We'll be able to engage the rifles at the 240 meter range with the Flammenwerfer. Just got to reveal them first, which will require some infantry to advance. On the top side, Panzergrens engaged by rifles here. Rifles engaging. There's one man with both his Thompson and the M1 Garand. Good old Rambo. Using two weapons at once. If you guys didn't know, when it's down to one man, they always use two weapons regardless. Like they can fire both a Kar 98 and an MG42 at the same time. It's quite spectacular actually. But either way, this Panzer 1C is going to fall prey to the Ranger Marauder squad that was in this tree line. Panzer 1C on the bottom side though, making some ground, absolutely rips to shred that infantry squad. The P-38 Lightning has come in for the strafing run, but that's enough ground to cancel the +1 that was in favour of Herr Robert. So, a close game all round. Panzer Grenadiers do find themselves killed off on this top side as they try and break through the tree line into the face of the Ranger Marauders and the rifles. Now two Panzer 1C is going to be on their way, but they are going to need more infantry, and that is something that the 9th Panzer doesn't necessarily have as much availability of than the 2nd Infantry. The Panzer Grenadiers, they've managed to get to the edge of the factory here, which is very important. This is a really nice engagement range actually to take on infantry that goes into these buildings, because it's just down a range of the 100 meter, but allows the Panzer Grenadiers to continue to use their machine guns, so that's very important. Unfortunately for player, there's nothing really he has other than this Panzerschreck that can kill these M4DDs, and this Panzerschreck's in an awkward situation because it could maybe house hop over towards the bottom side of the factory here, but it will be spotted on the way, and that means that its surprise factor will be gone. Range Sports, they're going to be in line of sight to the Flam Panzer. Really nice micro there by player to find that kill. On this bottom side, Panzer 1C, probably better off just facing and firing at the M1 gun there rather than trying to retreat initially. Because now this M1 gun very likely to find the kill at some point, if it wants to hit the mark. B-Troop, can they move up and kill that off? Yes, they can. Panzer 1C survives, but does get track well destroyed. So that means that it is disabled for the time being. And it's unlikely that player is going to invest in some supply just to fix up a Panzer 1C, because they aren't the most expensive units. Maybe if he has the spare time later on, then he may do so, but otherwise it looks like that Panzer 1C is going to sit there for the time being. Panzer Grenadiers did move up to one of these edge buildings again, forced to fall back though. The Ranger Mortars there, they are doing a lot of work pinning down those Panzer Grenadiers, but now going to be falling prey to counter battery though. Flam Panzer kills off a rifle squad, and the micro of this Flam Panzer has been really, really nice so far, just to clean up those infantry. So now the M1 gun coming in to reinforce on the bottom side to replace the one that was killed. That's able to freely unload out of range of the Panzer 1C. The Panzer 1C has 800 meter range on its main gun, so this M1 gun able to just engage it as long as it needs to in order to get the job done. So for player, I think it's more about just getting the Panzer 4Js online now. We have just moved into Phase B, and that is something that player should have an abundance of. Just either Panzer 4Hs or Panzer 4Js, either of which will be good for pushing back into the M4DDs and the other tanks that Herr Robert decides to use. But really nice kill there for the Panzerschrecks, double teamed to the M4DD. Now player just needs to get the Panzerschreck down to the bottom side, but you can see Herr Robert already backing off just to make sure that doesn't happen again. Doesn't want to fall prey to that twice in a row. But when a Panzerschreck does find a kill onto an M4DD, it does pay itself off 4 times over. You can see a Panzerschreck costs 30 points, M4DD costs 120 points. So really nice kill. Panzergrenadiers though on the top side of the factory, they're forced back. Panzergrenadiers near the river, they're falling back as well. And the Panzer 1Cs on the top side, they've both been killed off by the Ranger Marauders here. So, player, I don't know. It seems as though his infantry has often been used recklessly throughout this game so far, and that may start to cost him in the late game when Herr Robert's infantry availability really comes to light and he can start to take advantage of the situation that player will be in, where he cannot really contest these buildings properly. But Pioneers have now been brought in, and if they can get within the 100 meter range, then they can use those 20 HE power grenades, but they are quite simply in the same situation that the Panzer Grenadiers are on, or were in, on the edge of this factory, and thus do not have that same sort of effectiveness, since they are not using their grenades and they have one less machine gun. E-38 Lightning comes in with the strafing run and start to hit these Panzer Grenadiers. Yeah, using Panzer Grenadiers just in general without support of tanks is something that player has been doing, and does mean that the Panzer Grenadiers die very quickly, when ideally I think just surviving in the early game would have been fine for the 9th Panzer, and then pressing forwards with Panzer IVs accompanied by Panzer Grenadiers would have been a much better idea. But either way, M4DD again coming in on this top side, absolutely smashes Panzer Grenadiers, the 50 cal there and the 30 cal on target of these Panzer Grens, gonna clean those up nicely. Now the M4 gonna engage the Panzer Grenadiers on the top side, and that's 2 more units of Panzer Grenadiers killed off in quick succession. And now there is quite simply no defense left on this top side for player. On the bottom side, the Panzer IV-J, it is doing well to back off here, since there is, of course, an M1 gun in this tree line. Herr Robert knows this M1 gun is here, quite simply due to the fact that it killed the Panzer 1C previously when it reinforced. So, player was well aware of this AT gun. The Panzer II Lux is going to fall prey to it by the looks of things, unless the Panzer Grenadier can save the day. Not quite. Panzer II Lux goes down. Yes, the Panzer Grenadiers will pin the M1 gun, but not in time. Maybe allows the Panzer IV-J to get some work done, but that is still an M1 gun able to fire at the Panzer IV-J and bounces off the front armor, which is quite lucky. I was surprised it hit at all with that much pinning effect on it. But nice off map coming in from Herr Robert, brings in the M4A1OP, manages to actually hit the Opel Blitz munition there with that off map, which is pretty important because it stops the mortar from being reloaded, and also nearly killed it, so that was very nice. This salient on the top side though, it's not being taken advantage of. I think a nice idea here would just be have the low strength unit of rifles run forwards and try and grab as much ground as possible, so that you maintain a +1 even if a player decides to reinforce that top side, because I feel like with those Panzer Grenadiers coming in, Herr Robert's going to lose just enough to not have a +1, as you can see, 51% territory lead. So players also going to be investing in the off-map using a BEO Panzer IV-H, which is another really nice vehicle. These tanks that come in with off-map can be very, very nice. This Panzer IV is a little different to the M4A1OP though, because the M4A1OP can't use its main gun whilst the Panzer IV can. That's going to kill some Ranger Marauders there. It's also going to pin down the Ranger leaders and so on. I think it also killed the rifles there, which was nice. That is a nasty kill on the bottom side though. Herr Robert comes in with the M5 gun, snipes that Panzer IV-J. Without recon, can't really afford to do that, but he does have it there. It must be just out of range. Yeah, I think from this distance it requires like 400 meter range for a recon squad to see an AT gun in heavy cover. That is quite a good statistic to know, by the way. But here it's just down of range, which is unfortunate because therefore player got caught out by that AT gun. The Marder 3 on the top side, it was trying to stop this M4 advancing, but looks like that's being forced to fall back as well. More off-map being traded into the factory is going to kill off a lot of players' men. This Panzer Grenadier down to 1 man, Panzer Grenadier down to 1 man, Pioneers down to 4. Panzer 4H going to look for the kill onto the M4A1 OP though, does find the shooter wound. On the top side, the Panzer 2 looks, that's going to take an off-map strike. There goes the M4A1 OP. I'm not sure the intention of this off-map. Yes, of course it will pin down the Panzer 2 looks, but where does he go from there? Because the Panzer 2 will likely just fall back between these two tree lines. If it falls back in front of the M4, then maybe there's a kill. But the other reason to sort of off-map that is possibly to take out any infantry that may be defending it. Now Pioneers did come in on this top side. They did manage to take out the Ranger Marauders by the looks of things. And they should be able to take on the rifles quite well. But that depends if they get in range. And well, the Pioneers, they have been found. Both of the rifle squads going to be opening up. And the Pioneers are in a little bit of trouble there. Now the off-map did end up killing a half-track, which was quite nice. But constant pressure across the board is really allowing Herr Robert to take control of this game at the moment. Even comes in with a P-38 Lightning to strafe that Pioneer on the top side. This bottom side, you can see without the Panzer IV-J is an absolute skeleton of its former self. Into the factory, all of his units are working with really low amounts of men, and whilst on the other side, you know, Herr Robert, you know, full strength squads of rifles, which just haven't been touched yet. And that's an easy way for Herr Robert to make ground if he can. Now this Panzer IV is taking shots to the M4. Going to take a while to reload though, and the M4 does manage to get behind cover, but the other Panzer IV-H on the top side going to be starting to take shots as well. And well, it's only a matter of time until this Panzer IV-H finds the kill, gets the track well destroyed. Plenty of time to get the job done. This off-map strike will not land in time, no way. M4DD goes down. So another Panzer IV is on the field. That is now 3 on this top side. This one getting poked by the M5 gun, but that didn't land on target. Xylophone now getting involved. Going to pin down the Panzer IV-H. Didn't actually end up pinning it, which is unfortunate for Herr Robert. But really no consequence, because there wasn't a tank that could take advantage of that engagement anyway due to the M4DD dying on the top side. This Panzer IV-H, though, that's falling back now. These rifles are being spotted by the Space Route there, so he can try and clean those up. But Herr Robert sitting with this +1 quite comfortably at the moment. The only way that player can really break back, I think, is just by creating a death ball of Panzer IVs that can kind of sweep through an area. Currently, though, it seems as though all of these Panzer IVs are being neutralized by the artillery. But Herr Robert, is he going to make the same mistake twice? The M4DD actually survives a Panzerschreck's shot to the face. Will it survive the second? Doesn't have to. Panzerschreck goes down. Not quite microed there correctly by player. I think he had a chance to let that reload behind the building, and then when it was reloaded, jump back in and find the second shot. Instead, he got a bit greedy there, allowed the Panzerschrecks to be fired upon before they'd fired themselves, and that meant the M4 gets away with it this time. M5 gun now brought into the very top side. There is now 2 covering these angles, and that means that this BEO Panzer IV has been taken out. If that had any off-map strikes left, then that was a huge loss, but I don't think it did. So, player not going to be as annoyed that he lost that, but still frustrating to deal with these M5 guns, which have been a huge factor throughout the game, across the map actually. On the bottom side, this M5 gun killed that Panzer IV. We saw like this M5 gun, that's got plenty of kills. And those are things that definitely can add up in order to be game winning for one player or another. Panzer does manage to take out these rifles. It's going to be pressing aggressively into the factory here, burning these men alive. And well, those rifle squads that I said were untouched are now burnt to a crisp. And that is not something that I expect Herr Robert wants to see. This Panzer though, that's getting aggressive. Doesn't quite manage to kill off the Ranger Marauder, regardless of getting off some flames towards it, which is interesting, and the M4DD cleans up the Panzer quite well. Now there was a chance that the Panzer, if it targeted the M4DD, put some flames underneath it and forced the M4 to move, resetting its aim, and then if it continues to do so, potentially find surrender. But in this case, M4DD manages to get the shot. Both of the 60mm mortars though have been taken out. That one did eventually burn, regardless, due to the napalm left on the ground. Now the mortar is trying to cover this bottom side with the Panzer Grenadiers being cleaned up across the board. You can see that there is a huge lack of infantry on the side of player. His reckless regard for his infantry early on is starting to show here, as the majority of his units are just armor, and he isn't investing as much into infantry at all. Now there is more infantry on the way now, but he just won't have that in abundance at this point. So the 251 is going to be providing some smoke, possibly for this Panzer to make a move towards enemy infantry, but the M4DD is in position, should be able to find the shot on target. Does actually miss, which could be quite costly for Herr Robert, because if this Panzer bumps into these rifles, for example, starts using its flamethrower, then things could go badly for Herr Robert. But player instead not able to use the flamethrower due to being too close, and Herr Robert kills the Panzer with the grenade of the infantry. Tiger E has arrived on this bottom side. Herr Robert's invested into an M10 himself, but the M10 will require some assistance in order to take out this Tiger E if he wishes to do so. M4DD behind the factory, backing off, managing to get out of there. Look at this Tiger, it's neatly tucked between these barracks. Gonna take out the M5 gun, nice and easy. Now the M10 gonna get involved. But that didn't even fire at the right target. I don't believe it did. He's now trying to engage the speed troop, which is fine. If you can take out that recon, it's quite nice, but it's very unlikely that a main gun of a tank is going to ever kill like an infantry squad that quickly. So the speed troop do make it to cover. Rifles, they're going to be pinned down by this Tiger. A second Tiger on this bottom side would be ideal right now, because then you would have them to support each other. Whereas currently, I think there's potential for like an airstrike from Herr Robert, possibly like a bombing strike or something, that may allow the M10 to clean up the Tiger in the future. This M4 though, that's making a move out of line of sight of the Tiger on the bottom side. And while knowing where one of these Tigers is actually quite good for Herr Robert, because it allows him to play around it. And that's why this M4 is able to push aggressively on this bottom side. We did see the Panzer IV die in the factory. I'm not entirely sure what that was to. It looks like it must have been this M4DD. The xylophone hit a strike at the same time, but I don't believe the HE took it out. I think it was this M4DD. Nice kill for Herr Robert regardless, and he is continuing to make ground here. Nice smoke is actually going to keep this M4 covered as it continues to move forwards. Reinforcing with another M5 gun is really smart as well, as it is going to lead to a really decent engagement against this Tiger. Like, that's a 3v1. M4 engages at the less than 1,000 meter range. You got the M5 gun engaging, and then the M10 engaging as well. Player rightly so backing off, but that is going to maintain the +1 in favour of Herr Robert, who is starting to rack up a substantial lead of nearly 900 points. Now on this bottom side, the rifles, they're pushing, just throwing bodies at the front line now. Herr Robert to try and make some ground. He's found these Panzer Grenadiers. Now what he wants to do though is get these rifles through the tree line to see what's on the other side. But having noticed the Panzer II looks, going to stop those in their tracks, as he will not want the 20mm autocannon to rip them to shreds. The M4 though, going to clean that up, and I'm sure these rifles will continue to press on afterwards. Meanwhile on the top side, Rhino's now brought in. M5 gun though, still being a problem. Not anymore. Mortar half-track gets the job done. I think player, he's been on point with these mortar half-tracks. It's just a shame that his Opel Blitz munition went down, but that is a very important kill there, as the M5 gun takes out the first of the two Tigers, and that is the weakness of those Tigers, is their armor is just not quite up to scratch when it comes to taking on things like M5 guns and 17-pounders, and that is a very significant kill. It looks like it was possibly a side shot as well. So that just allows the M4 to continue its aggression. Panzer IV has just died on the top side as the M4A1 manages to get the job done. Unless that was actually the M5 gun once again. M5 gun is going to take out the Panzer II looks, and wow, these M5 guns have been putting in work throughout this game. +2 now for Herr Robert. That has cracked open the defences of player entirely. Player now forced to bring in a second Tiger to this bottom side. That will be the only other Tiger he has access to, and when that one goes down, that is pretty much game over for the 9th Panzer quite often, because they just don't simply have the armour left to take on the abundance of M4s that the opponent has at that point, especially against a division like the 2nd Infantry. And Shermans, they are just absolutely ruthless against divisions like the 9th Panzer, and it's something that Herr Robert's definitely taking advantage of now into the late game here. He doesn't have to invest so much in all of this infantry because player doesn't have much himself, and therefore M4s will make a lot more ground. But that's going to be an M4DD taken out there. Tiger gets the job done. But on the bottom side, well, the Mittelwagen's going to have to be forced back by the transmission damage, and Panzergrens have found themselves pinned down. We're almost a +3 here for Herr Robert. He's trying to press aggressively now on this top side as well. Rifles will eventually find these pioneers, but they will get chewed up by the machine guns, no doubt. Big troop there trying to make some ground to get some recon information behind enemy lines, but not entirely sure how helpful that will be, since it's unlikely the player even has the units to take advantage of any information that he has. Off-map is going to be coming down on top of the Marder 3. If that stays in its location, there's a potential that the off-map could kill it. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But I think it's more about just cleaning up the rest of the infantry that player has, and then Herr Robert will be running home free. ME-109 going to be coming in with the rocket strike to swing the engagement in favour of player. Now going to be trying to use the Panzer IV-J to take that out. But all the while, the rifles are continuing to make ground. Marder 3 is going to get hit by this off-map. Gets forced to fall back, which is pushing it right through the centre of the off-map circle, but managing to get away with it for now. M4A1 Rhino also missing its shot. Rifles, they're going to be pushing on, trying to engage these pioneers. Going to get taken out though. These pioneers get pinned down by the xylophone strike, but there isn't any infantry to push onto them, so that's a bit odd. Either way, double Panzer II looks now coming in on the top side. Panzer IV-J does manage to take out the M4A1 Rhino. Now these looks are really good actually for destroying these infantry squads, so I like the choice to accompany the Panzer IV-J. And since I already mentioned that there isn't a general lack of AT infantry on the side of the 2nd Infantry, that is something that these looks can definitely take advantage of when there is no enemy armor or AT that can stop them. So these Panzer II looks now freely going to just chew up this Ranger leader, for example, kill off the rifles squads, and just basically press back through on that top side. So regardless of the fact that player is very far behind at this point, he's still trying to make some aggressive plays, which I commend. But this M5 gun, is it going to kill more armor? We'll have to wait and see. It's already killed so many units. It's used up all of its HE, It's used up 14 shots on its AP. Can it make some more shots count? M5 gun gets into line of sight of the Panzer IV J. Going to be very close range, should get one-shot kill. Doesn't quite. That's going to be an ammo storage hit. We do see the shot come in from another M5 gun there. And this M5 gun get the job done. It's going to be instead firing at the Panzer IV or Panzer II Lux. But that Panzer IV ends up surrendering to the M4A1 OP. And that is pretty much job done. Now one of the Pioneers, they've been taken out. Second set of Pioneers, they're going to be forced out of the building as it collapses. And, well, that's both of the Pioneers in the factory now dead. One man standing in the way of complete infantry domination in the factory here for Herr Robert. ME-109 though, going to clean up one of the M5 guns on the bottom side. Mobile wagons hitting these rifles quite well. With that M5 gun gone, the Tiger is king once again versus the armour of Herr Robert. Panzer II Lux, that's going to come around very close range onto this M4A1. Goes down though. M5 gun had that covered. Tiger cleans up some rifles on the bottom side, but there goes those Panzer Grenadiers. Now we're seeing the xylophone hit the half track here. And one thing that's really nice about these xylophones is, due to their kind of radius of effect, the area of effect, when you see these little dents in the front line, it's quite common that you'll see players just like fire into those dents, because it's quite common that there is going to be a unit there. And in this case, I think the xylophone just hit that area because it could see the front line pushed forwards. And that just shows initiative on the side of Herr Robert and taking advantage of that situation. M5 gun on this bottom side does engage the Tiger. Tiger's forced to fall back once again. Mobile wagon is currently smoked off, but for how long I'm not entirely sure. M10 now engaging the Tiger E as well. Does find the bounce. One shot from forcing that Tiger to fall back. It does manage to get behind cover though. Just about. Now falling back though. M4A1's free to come around on the bottom side and engage the mobile wagon. And the mobile wagon is not going to have enough HE to pin the M4A1, so that mobile wagon is dead. Panzer IV H on the top side, that's now engaging a Rhino. There is potential here for a kill on the side of the Panzer IV H, but more so on the side of the M4A1 due to the front armour of the Rhino. And it looks like just in the same moment there, two Rhinos took out two Panzer IVs, and that is really not good for a player. 64% territory lead now for Herr Robert. Sitting on this +2, almost the +3. Players still trying to push back with Pioneers in the town, or in the factory, sorry, but whether or not, well, that's going to make a difference, I mean, it's not. Quite simply at this point, M4A1 OP does get taken out by the Panzerschreck, but the Panzerschreck, that can just get hidden again. Won't be able to do enough damage. Players just completely run out of steam. This second Tiger is completely under so much pressure and won't be able to hold back the tide that Herr Robert is pushing towards him. Like, most of players' units just weren't really cost efficient, especially the Panzer Grenadiers throughout this game, and I think maybe if he'd supported his Panzer Grenadiers better and kind of delayed more until Phase B, then he would have had the infantry availability to support his tanks. Especially the abundance of Panzer IVs moving through Phase B. And the ME-109 GTBR-21 does come in with the attack onto the M10 just to try and take that out. There is potential that could burn up in the flames, but it's not going to this time around. Tiger E should probably take a shot at the M10 while it can, because if it allows the M10 to fire at it, then it's going to be forced to fall back, which it is. And now this ME-109, that's going to be trying to fall back. The P-47 Thunderbolt, though, I don't think it's going to be able to get onto the back of that. Possibly will, actually. But the Focke-Wulf comes in on its tail. P-47 forced to fly away. Now it's going to be a 2v1. The Focke-Wulf, can it get the damage done? Yep, manages to fall back the P-47 Thunderbolt. That's going to be a nice kill there for player. Just to make up some kills towards the end of this one, but just in general, look at the forces, guys, that Herr Robert has access to at this point. It's absolutely insane. Let's count the amount of Shermans are on the field. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 M4s on the field. One of them's an OP, but that's fine. And then there's also this M10 on the bottom side, whilst player has a Marder 3 and a Tiger that's being pushed all the way back to the spawn. And, well, it looks like Gabby does manage to take out the Focke-Wulf, and the P-38 takes out the ME-109, so what was going to be an air engagement that fell in favour of player actually didn't. I think the P-47 Thunderbolt even got out alive. Marder 3 goes down as well, and player surrenders. So after 36 minutes and 47 seconds, Herr Robert is victorious, takes the second game against player, and therefore is left at a 1-1. So, great series between these two. Really, really nice games. But in this one, Herr Robert certainly did a number against player's 9th Panzer. The 3,635 kills there to 2,135 losses. So the M4DD did relatively well early on, but I think the MVP really comes down to these M5 guns. Like this M5 gun took out 2 Panzer II Lux. There was this M5 gun took out the Panzer IV. This one took out the Tiger. This one took out a Panzer IV-J. Like those kills were very important, and they were at decisive moments in the game. This Ranger Marauder took out 3 Panzer I-Cs, which was very, very nice. Definitely paid themselves off by doing that. But then, of course, you know, the M4s, they do a lot of damage. Really, really showed up throughout this game as well. And it was interesting to see the use of off-map from both players, which also seemed to work out quite nicely. But in general, the kill's quite spread, no hero units. It's just the types of units and how they were used that really made the difference. In terms of losses for Herr Robert, it looks like player managed to use some of his units quite well, especially things like the Flam Panzer. I think he used his Panzer IVs reasonably well as well. But yeah, this Flam Panzer in the factory, killing off a couple of units of infantry was quite important just to maintain control there. His Panzer IV-J taking out a Rhino there. Tiger E does take out the M4. Marder 3 took out 2 tanks in the end, which paid itself off. But most of the kills coming very, very late, whereas early on, like the majority of the kills went in favour of Herr Robert, and you can see just how many like Panzer Grenadiers and like light tanks went down to all of the AT and like AP units just in general that Herr Robert had access to. And that's something that really blunts the 9th Panzer in Phase A. So there you have it. Herr Robert takes one game, player takes the other, and we are left at a 1-1. Now remember guys, these players do only play 2 games, so there is not a third game. I have seen many people comment, like, where's the third game? But there actually isn't any. They only play 2, regardless of the outcome. And that's that. So, hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.